Hey guys, welcome to Happy Hour with Raj. And this week I have Dr. Eggman from Sonic the Hedgehog, Mr. Mike Pollock. Yay, big hand for Mike. I know he can't hear you guys out there, but I know they're clapping out there. Mikey, thanks.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Are you going to do the Dr. Eggman voice all night? Is that what's going to happen?
Not all night. I've been screaming in another video game for most of the day, so there's not much left.
Okay. All right. So tell us about yourself. I mean,
Sure.
you
Most folks,
Mhm.
from what I gather, most folks know me as Dr. Eggman, which is fantastic. Sonic Sonic the Hedgehog celebrating his 30th birthday tomorrow, and Dr. Eggman as well, who appeared in the first game.
Mhm.
But other stuff I've done, if you grew up in 4Kids TV in the Fox box back in the early 2000s, I was the mayor on Kirby. I was on Sonic X. I was Dr. Eggman and Ella the Maid. I was in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a couple of things. I was in Go-Go Riki, where I played Big Oriki. And then I was a narrator of Pokemon for a couple of seasons.
Oh, nice.
And most recently, folks would know the infamous mockbuster known as Rat-Tat-Toing, which the internet likes to destroy. And also, more recently, I've been Caillou's dad since 2017.
Oh, that to me is the most important one of all of them, right? The
Thank
Caillou's
you.
dad thing. 1 second here. I'm just gonna get my light back up again. Yeah. So how did you get the Caillou's dad? I'm sorry. 1 second. How did you get the Caillou's dad gig happening? How was that? Seems to be a big change from all the other kinds of gigs you've been doing, right?
Caillou was being rebooted. His original run had run its course, and the producers decided let's shuffle things around for whatever reason, and they decided to go with a New York-based cast. So I auditioned. I got an audition as I get all the time, and this one was for Caillou's dad, which I knew because I've got kids of my own, and they grew up at least partially on Caillou. And I said, "Well, I know this guy." So I did my best impression of Caillou's dad, and apparently the producers liked it. So okay.
Fantastic. And well, most people assume that you're in LA, but you're not. You're in New
Mm.
Jersey these days. And how is that working out in terms of voice acting for you?
Well, for pre-pandemic, it was all locally based in New York with some working from home. But the pandemic shifted everything around because I had a home set up for auditions and stuff, and occasional light production and recording. But then the pandemic happened, and suddenly no one was going anywhere. So I upgraded some equipment, fancy microphone, fancy interface, and the work started coming in remotely. So I've done stuff in LA remotely. I've done stuff in Texas remotely, and a couple international things. So it's been great to keep working. But still, I've traveled into Manhattan from here in the suburbs about half a dozen times during the pandemic. Lots of masks and gloves and sanitizer. I was just in the city today as well.
Yeah.
So life is sort of coming back, but I might want to keep working from home as much as possible. The commute is much more convenient.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people actually are really enjoying this new experience of doing voiceover for music work from home and not having to be in a major center anymore. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that because I know that a lot of aspiring voice actors and working voice actors tune into the show to get the behind the scenes story from successful voice actors like yourself. What are you doing? Like, how are you doing it? How did you get started? Those are kind of typical questions. So let's maybe start with how you got your start in voice acting and move forward from
Sure.
there.
I grew up loving radio. I was a radio kid back in the 70s because I loved the theater of the mind. I loved being able to listen to disc jockeys on the radio, and I discovered old time radio from the 1940s and 1950s and realized everyone's doing everything with their voice and sound effects and creating mental images, and that was fantastic. So I focused on that, but I also had a general love of theater. So I got involved in school shows. And when high school came around, I was part of the high school radio program at a local college, so I was getting some radio experience. And then when it came time for college and I had to choose a major, the choice was radio or theater. And I realized neither one of them have much in the way of job stability. Theater jobs are short-lived. You're in a show until you're not. Radio jobs are a little more permanent, but you can be fired for just about any reason, as I found out later in life. So I picked radio, and I majored in radio. Wanted to minor in theater, but I was at Syracuse University, where you can't minor in theater. So they had a group called Syracuse University Musical Stage, which was the theater group for folks who weren't in the theater program, as well as others who were. But me not being in the theater program, I got to do shows, which was cool. And around that time, our radio production class took a trip to a local radio station. Everyone wanted to see the disc jockey, the newsroom. I went to the production guy making commercials and stuff and said, "You taking any interns?" He said, "I don't know. We've never had an intern. Can I be your first intern?" Sure. So I sat and cataloged records in the record library on index cards and a typewriter, because that's the part of the early 80s that was. And eventually I finished the record library, and they didn't know what else to do with me because I had run out of intern work. They said, "Well, you want to be on the radio?" Okay. So I started being a part-time disc jockey, running overnights, and then a little more normal hours, still working in production, making commercials and stuff. And then that turned into a production director job in Rochester, New York. And that's where I was fired for not being rock and roll enough, which is a legitimate reason to be fired apparently in radio. And when that kicked me to the curb, I went back to New York, where I worked in a radio syndication company, duplicating tapes, 10-inch reel-to-reel tapes, which had to be sent out for our syndicated shows, also pre-digital technology. And did that for a while. And then they started having me writing comedy and comedy bits and song parodies. I get to voice some of the comedy bits. And I had already voiced some commercials and stuff back on the radio, but I did a lot more commercial work and character voices, built a demo tape, which worked out well because at one point I was laid off from that gig. And when I was between engagements, I took my demo reel, shopped it around, got a walk-on cameo on Pokemon, was one of the first things. And the first anime that I did was a little gem you might be able to dig up out of some dusty old bin called Demon Fighter Kocho. And the networking connections that I made with those particular projects snowballed into other stuff. And eventually I started adding a voiceover coach so I could do more commercial work and grab some agents and managers. And that's what's keeping me busy. I get auditions in the email. Used to be able to go to places and audition in person, but the pandemic happened. But now I audition remotely, direct myself, and sometimes people like them enough to book me.
That's fantastic. Now, have you ever lived in LA? Have you gone that direction and done the LA thing, or has it always been East Coast for you?
I've visited a lot, but with the digital technology being what it is now, I've been able to work in LA remotely. All the Sonic stuff that I do since 2010, I've been doing it since 2003, all in New York. But then they switched everything back to LA in 2010. They kept me on as the only New Yorker, and they would have me go to a local New York studio hooked up on the internet listening, and they would record me remotely and take my stuff and put it all together in their games. And we would eventually record the Sonic Boom cartoon that way too. I'd be New York, the LA people would be in LA on headphones just like this, and we would act together remotely, and they'd put it all together into a cartoon. So my wife will not tolerate living in LA. So as long as this arrangement works out, it works out for everyone. And I fly out occasionally when they need me. So it's a lovely place to visit, but I haven't needed to live there just yet.
Okay, all right. And so interesting that, because I lived half my life in Japan. So I've worked with Sega in Japan. I've worked with Sega here in the US too. And good friends with people in Sega. But I'm just surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm just curious how you made the connection to Sega. How did that happen? I know that they work a lot out of LA. I wasn't aware that they were so ingrained in the New York scene, but how did the Sega thing happen in the first place? How'd that come up?
I was in the right place in the right time. One of the connections, the early connections I made, was a Pokemon episode being produced by 4Kids Productions. 4Kids at the time was building their Fox Box and 4Kids TV Saturday morning lineup on the Fox Broadcasting Network. So they needed to fill all their shows, cast all their dubs. They needed a promo guy. They happened to like my promo voice, so I started doing promo stuff there. I was in some early anime dubbing. And one of the things they got licensed in after the first couple of years was Sonic X. And the producers of Kirby Right Back at You, where I played the mayor, was also producing the dub of Sonic X. And he was really interested in getting me to be the voice of Dr. Eggman because he knew my work, which was cool. So they sent me some samples of the previous guy, Dean Bristow, to mimic the voice. So I listened to it and I did my best Dean Bristow impression. I'm Dean Bristow. Went in for an audition. Sega apparently not convinced. They had me back for a callback. I did the same. I'm Dean Bristow. One more try, third callback. Finally, Sega was convinced. And since they had decided to take the production to New York, they were casting a full New York cast. So they had all New York actors from 2003 to 2010, starting with the Sonic X anime dub and following with various video games until 2010. And then in 2010, there was a big shakeup, recasting, whatever you want to call it. They took production back to LA. The Sega people asked me to re-audition, which was a surprise. So I got a call from one of my agents who said, I have this audition for a character. I think you've done it before, Dr. Eggman. Yeah, I thought I was still doing it, but okay. They want you to audition, and okay. So I sent an audition of exactly what I had been doing for Dr. Eggman, figuring they liked it before. I hope they like it again. And they did. So they took me on. And then they brought me out for a couple of workshopping things when we started workshopping the Sonic Boom cartoon. And it's been a delightful relationship going on just about 18 years.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so some peak moments in your career as Dr. Eggman.
Well, let's see. The recasting was probably the greatest peak because to audition once and book a role is great. To audition a second time and rebook the role, that's a tremendous compliment. Since the Sonic X years, the 4Kids years, were not great. It was not a direct relationship with Sega. Everything went through 4Kids, so there was no direct relationship or direct communication with Sega. But after 4Kids had a little bankruptcy issue, not sure that Sonic was to blame in that case, but when Sega took it over production directly, they would call me directly and have me do stuff. They would fly me out to LA for business trips and things. And then they did a couple of live events. They did one in New York in 2014. Then there was the 25th anniversary thing, which would have been, doing the math, 5 years ago. So 2016. That was in San Diego, I believe. And there was some fantastic live events because they're full of Sonic fans and they're there to see their Sonic actors and characters and other stuff. So it was just a tremendous love fest. It was fantastic.
Great, great.
And
Okay,
then all the stuff they keep asking me to do today.
and so can you tell us what you've been doing recently with Sonic? Anything you could talk about?
Well, there's nothing specific. I announced earlier this year, after one of our voice of Sonic stepped away from the role temporarily, I was able to confirm that I will still be in the Sonic video games.
Oh,
And
nice.
there's some Sonic video games planned for the coming years. So unless the information has changed and I wasn't aware of, I'll be in that. There's other stuff coming out that I can't say if I'm in yet, so we'll have to stay tuned. But the most recent thing I did, I guess, was the last video game and some little short cartoons that they've been using, some existing voice clips. So that still counts as having me in it, I guess. But suffice to say, big things are happening.
Nice. Okay. And now, were you? I'm forgive me for not knowing this, but were you part of
Please.
the movie as well? No. Okay, I wasn't sure if you
First
were.
movie, yeah. The movie history has been a little bizarre. In Wreck-It Ralph, Sonic and Dr. Eggman appeared. Sonic had dialogue voiced by our current Sonic voice actor, Roger Craig Smith. Dr. Eggman only appeared in a few crowd scenes without dialogue of his own, so I was not needed for those particular bits. And then for the first Sonic film, I was not in that at all. And the second one is in production, and we'll soon find out if I'm in that as well.
Okay. Well, I hope to see you there in that one for sure, or hope to hear you in that one. So.
That makes two of them.
Okay, so tell us about the Caillou thing. I mean, because I've got kids too, and Caillou was a big part of their lives when they were real little babies, and so tell us what happened with the Caillou thing, because that's something that I totally relate to as well.
As I've learned, Caillou's much reviled in the internet. He gets a little annoying, and folks don't like to be annoyed, and that's fantastic. But Caillou was produced in Canada for many years. I watched it with my kids,
Mhm.
not intentionally, but the kids were watching it, so I was watching it.
Yeah, me too.
Learned a lot of Caillou by osmosis.
Yeah.
And he was fine. It's like, okay, this is educational. I can see why people would hate it, but the educational dad in me was like, okay, that's some decent life lessons here.
Mhm.
And I got an audition out of the blue saying, we're auditioning for Caillou. I said, okay, I know Caillou, Caillou's dad. I knew Caillou's dad. So I did my best Caillou's dad, which is, that's right, Caillou. I'm Caillou's dad. Little bogus Canadian accent, not terribly inaccurate, if I do say so myself. And apparently the Caillou people liked it. And when we started, it was a very small cast, so I ended up playing all the other male characters as well. I was Caillou's grandpa as well. I
Yeah.
was I was the bus driver. I was the ice cream vendor. Any little incidental voice they needed for the first few seasons, anyway, that was me. So I pretty much, apart from the kids, I couldn't pass. I was a background kid in some school scenes, but I was not any of the main kids and Caillou's friends. But I was all the other male characters. There is on YouTube a compilation of me and all my male voices,
Oh.
which demonstrates that they weren't meant to be listened to all back to back like that. And we certainly didn't say, well, does this voice sound different from all the other? You don't care? Okay. And then we listened back and, well, all right. Within 10% different. It was fine.
I think Peppa Pig does the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like one person doing tons of different voices on Peppa Pig as well. I get that vibe from it as well. So how many voices are you doing on Caillou in total?
Well, about 3 primary ones, and then about a dozen other incidentals. And it's they fill the space. They serve their purpose.
Fantastic. Okay, and so okay, we talked about the Sega, the Caillou, and there was something else that we mentioned at the very beginning. What was it? That other
Yeah, I would be remiss if I did not mention Ratatouille.
Ratatouille. That's right.
Ratat Ratatouille is a genre unto itself, the mockbuster.
Hmm.
There's a company, in this case, a company in Brazil, who produces uh, animated films that, let's say, are very reminiscent of Disney and Pixar films.
Hmm.
Ratatouille, for example, might bear a certain resemblance to a film about a rat that works in a kitchen. And the plot is not completely identical, but the concept is similar. And I played one of the poorly animated rats in that. And that has caused many people in the internet to wonder, why would I do such a thing? And then I have to explain to them, I'm a working actor. I provide a service. I voice things that can't voice themselves. So the guy who dubs these films dubs lots of other stuff. He knows me. I'm reliable. I do decent work. He called me in. I auditioned. They liked it. I narrated the film. I played Greg the Rat. I played a mysterious human who's never seen. And I played a whiny rat earlier in the restaurant scene. I don't know. I don't want this. I don't know. So fine. And then there are a couple of other mockbusters from the same genre that bear various similarities to some animated films about cars, and perhaps one about a kung fu wielding panda. But
Oh,
that's just conjecture. I can't speculate on whether they're directly or indirectly related. I don't. But there they are,
there they
just doing
are.
my job.
And how popular are these shows?
Popular is a strong word. Uh, there are, if you search for them on YouTube, you'll find many critical critique type videos where someone will watch and say, "What the hell is this? Is off. Look at what he's. How can you?" Fine. So, all right, if that's why you want to watch it, there's no such thing as bad publicity, I guess. So, and apparently, I guess some parents and grandparents will inadvertently buy them for their kids, thinking they're the actual film, and the kids get a swell surprise. So, okay.
A little small surprise on Christmas with those, huh?
I bought a copy myself. I was in Barnes and Noble bookstore, and it was in the shelf on the shelf, and I said,
You're
"I
kidding.
guess I should buy that." So I've
Wow.
got a copy here somewhere.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So Tell us about what, I mean, you as a voice actor, if you were going to give advice to all those aspiring voice actors out there, when, like, trust me, there's a ton of them who come and watch the show. What would you say to them? I know that that's such a huge question, but what would you say to them when what piece of advice would you give them when they're first getting started, before they
Sure.
made a demo, before they made a demo?
Hmm. Think about why you want to be a voice actor. You might love anime, which is great. You might love video games, which is great. But think about the work involved and how short the work can be, and how they pay decently, but they pay very sporadically. If I'm dubbing an anime and it's a 1 episode thing, I work 4 hours and I'm done. So you got to think about, is that the kind of lifestyle you want to lead? People think that being in a cartoon means they drive a truck to your house and dump a load of cash on the front lawn. It's not always like that. But if you're ready to make the leap, one of the most important things is remember that voice is a specialization, not a restriction. We are actors. So when you're going into a studio to be a voice actor, make sure you're already an actor first. So get whatever kind of acting training you can get. Pre-pandemic, community theater was a thing. It's coming back now. But find a community theater that you can join if you got one in town. If you got school theater at your school, join that. Get whatever acting you can. You can pay for an acting coach. I don't recall that I did, but I had lots of community theater acting things. I paid for just part of being in a community theater group when I was in my early teens, and I got lots of experience in school shows and community theater. And learn to be an actor first, especially learn to act with other people, because oftentimes you get into a voice booth and you're all alone. You're reacting to people that may have already been recorded, but more often than not, you're imagining what people are going to sound like when they're being recorded. So you've got to be able to think, well, if someone else was here, how would I play this scene against them? So you can't be in a booth with the director expecting some experience and not having any. So please be an actor first, make your directors happy.
Okay. And so what, I mean, in terms of acting classes, I mean, post COVID, what would you say? What kind of classes, what can people do? I mean, community theater, of course, online classes, of course, right?
Yeah,
And
Zoom classes are a thing.
right, yeah.
Um, I started again with full service acting, prepping myself for eventual voice work, not really realizing it would be my focus primarily.
Mhm.
But when I got to this point, I had the radio background, so I knew how to do characters, but there was still the technique of doing commercials, doing promos, doing narrations, doing animation that I had some experience in, but I didn't have any training. Find a good coach for voiceover specifically. But before that, if you can get an online acting course just to learn the terminology of acting, how to interpret a script, how to work on a character, how to react with other actors, whether they're there or not. You got to invest some money. You got to spend money to make money, as they say. So if you can find a generous parent or other benefactor to pay your way, or
Mhm.
if you've saved money from a job, then reinvest that into a career, and then the career will ultimately pay for itself if you're lucky.
Yes, right. It is an investment. I think most people don't realize that. They feel like,
Mhm.
they could just suddenly become actors, but it is a process, right? To become a good actor, not just an actor, but a good actor, a trained actor.
And especially now in the days of work from home, you got to invest in some equipment. So I got a mic stand, I got a microphone, I got a audio interface, I got soundproofing on the wall. So it's a big thing.
Hmm. Okay, so tell us about the home studio setup, because it has become a hugely important part of becoming a voice actor these days, because you're not necessarily going into professional studio. You're basically doing things at home for the most part,
Mhm.
correct? I mean, could you tell, like, like, for example, what's changed, like, from before you were at, like, what percentage of the time would you go to the studio, and what percentage of the time would you work at home, and how has that changed
Mhm.
due to COVID?
When I started, it was all in studio, and I have had having radio experience. I was familiar with what a studio should look like, but I
Mhm.
didn't really have a great setup at home. So I started with crappy equipment that apparently people didn't mind.
Mhm.
But I had a cheap, I guess, Radio Shack at the time microphone with a 1/4 inch plug that I plugged into my computer. The the hard way, and was able to record stuff, and it worked well enough. And it was a lot of small steps and trial and error. At one point, people were complaining about a hum in my equipment, so I contacted a studio doctor to virtually diagnose my problem. He said, well, it's the way you're plugging that stuff in. In fact, I read a blog article that this studio doctor said, saying, never use the line in of your computer. I'm using the line in of my computer. Hello, what do you need me to do? And he said, well, do you have a USB mic, which I happen to have for traveling purposes? And I said, well, yeah, I have one. Plug it in. Click. Hey, that sounds a lot better. Thanks. That'll be $100. All right. Thank you so much. So I went with the USB mic for a while, and that was okay. And I gradually put up some audio, some acoustic foam here in my home office space, and that was okay until the pandemic hit. And the USB mic was working well enough, but suddenly with all these online remote recording, Source Connect, diddle connection open, weird things, one of my clients needed me to have my microphone connected to 2 different inputs at once. I said, well, this USB mic's not going to do that. When are you going to get yourself an interface? Now? Well, good. Try this one. Got the one he recommended. It worked okay. Didn't work great, but I got that, and I took one of the fancy XLR microphones that I had been experimenting with, plugged that into the interface. Hey, this sounds even better. Cool. So minimal, substantial, but minimal investment. The microphones are more expensive than the interface, but got that hooked up. And then one of my other clients said, for the duration of the pandemic, we're going to loan out microphones. So take this fancy Audio Technica AT4040 and use it in good health. Can I use it on other projects that aren't yours? Sure. Awesome. So I've got that up here and running. I've got an Electro Voice RE20, which was the go-to microphone for my radio days. Had to have one of those. And I can easily pack up the interface and the microphone into a little travel case, take it around with me. We've got a vacation home with a closet. So if we're spending the weekend there, I can pack up the mic and bring it there. If we're going to a hotel, I can pack it up and build a pillow for it and record from a hotel. So I'm making the best of it. And few people have complained. In fact, I would go so far, knock wood, I can't knock anything. People have said, that sounds great. So, okay, if you say so, I'm making it work. I would much rather, depending on the day, I'd rather go to a studio and have somebody else do all the heavy lifting, because when you're recording yourself, you got to be watching the levels, making sure you're not too loud. But at least in a studio, someone else can do that. And I did that today, and I had to hop on the bus, go to Manhattan, find a Starbucks to sit in until it was time for my session. All the Starbucks have closed because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But once I was in the studio and all wired up, and okay, cool, you're doing the heavy lifting, I can just focus on what I'm going to do. But otherwise, if I'm home working from home, it's 13 steps upstairs to the attic here, and I'm already at work. So that's good too. Right now, both options work, and I'm content, and so are the people who want to hear me.
That's great. And so, in terms of a startup situation, what would you say? Like, what would a startup sort of voice actor invest in something like that? Can you give us some idea what you'd say?
Sure. Hmm? You can get a good interface. The one I have, which not a commercial, it's the Solid State Logic SSL2. Should be about $200. You can get that at your local music store. You can order it online. You can get a decent XLR microphone and some cables for under $500. I'm not going to recommend anyone in particular, but this Audio Technica, I believe, is in the few $100. Again, this is still on a long-term loan. Shh. And then put up either acoustic tiles or if you have a closet, what I do in our vacation place, I took the clothes out of the closet. There are those rods that would hold the clothes. You drape curtains and bedspreads and acoustic blankets, which are really just moving blankets with a markup on them. And you've got a very nice echo-free space. And you close the door. It's dark. It's not well ventilated, but it's perfectly functional. And you set up your stuff in there. I will also recommend, if you can, a fanless laptop, because you can bring that right into your studio space and you don't have going on in the background.
Yes, great recommendation.
Mm-hmm. I've got a pair of those, one for home, one for traveling. And then you're fully self-contained. Learn how to work some audio software. I use Adobe Audition, but there's also Audacity, which is free and very functional. Learn how to record yourself, do some minor cleanup to get rid of pesky mouth noises and erase all those flubs. And then you have a decent setup and you're good to go. There are places online to look for auditions. There are peer-to-peer sites that are not great, but again, it's if you're starting out, they're okay. But eventually you want to attract the attention of an agent or a manager who will take you on and send you auditions and be on your side, which is a little more challenging. But when you build up some type of experience, send out a demo tape. Best thing is if you're going to get vocal coaching, voiceover coaching, as part of the money grabbing process, they will sell you demo production along with how to market yourself, where to send your stuff, and you'll end up with a demo at the end. And they'll put you in touch with agents and managers. And if you're lucky, the agents and managers will like you and want to take you on.
Okay, that brings us to another question. The difference between an agent and a manager. And do you need both, or do you just need one, or do you need neither?
It depends is the greatest question.
Okay.
An agent, their job is to look for auditions that you might be right for, send you the audition. If you book the audition, they will take 10% of your income. They don't get paid until you make some work, and that work, the payment is 10% of that job that they get or they help you get. They facilitate is our big word. A manager theoretically is supposed to take a little more interest in you and tell you how to nurture your career, grow your career, be there to give advice and counsel. Right. Also, they'll find you auditions and get work for you. And for that work, they will take 20% of your income. This varies in different countries. In the UK, I believe there's a sliding scale, but at least in the US agents and managers that I've dealt with, 10% for agents, 20% for managers. Mm-hmm. And there are different relationships. You can be signed exclusively with an agent and exclusively with a manager, or you can freelance. You can have lots of different agents working for you, sometimes sending you the same thing, in which case you say, oh, I got it from this other agent first. I'll have to go with them. Great, no problem. We'll get you next time. Same thing with a manager. I got this other agent. So that's actually how I do it. I have lots of people sending me stuff. So I'm constantly watching my email to make sure I'm not missing any of them. But they will help. They won't help you get the work because it's based on what you can do and whether if you have the sound the client is looking for. But they will at least send auditions your way and put in a good word for you, whatever that means.
So do you find that any voice actors out there these days have both an agent and a manager?
It again also depends. If you can get both, great. But sometimes they might both be taking their percentage, in which case the jobs either pay the rate plus 10% or plus 20%, or it's the rate and then you deduct the 10 or 20% from the rate you get. So you don't want too many people with their hands in the pie. But yeah, if you can have the more people representing you, at least in my judgment, the more people can be sending you stuff. So yesterday I got 6 different things from 4 different agents and or managers. So, hey, cool. Whether I book any of them, I don't know, but I auditioned for all of them, and I spent a good 2 hours in this room making noise and chopping it up and sending it places. And then there are some clients that reach out to me directly too, so that works too.
So that brings us to another great question. How many hours a day on average do you spend up in the attic working on your studio, working on auditioning? Because I know a lot of people don't realize how much auditioning goes on, even for professional actors such as yourself. A lot of auditioning happens every single day, correct? You still do, yeah?
The work is the easy part. The looking for work is the hard part. Right. We are freelancers. We're freelancers just like somebody who writes advertising copy or works for a business doing accounting for lots of different businesses. We are freelancers. We're self-employed. So the goal is to stay as busy as possible. So auditions will come in. I'll spend 2, possibly 3 hours a day, depending on the day. It could be more. I still have time to live a life, but stuff will come in. I will look and say, well, when's this due? Later today, great. I'll make sure to do it before the end of the day. Or tomorrow, great. I'll do it all tonight. So it works in with life. Some people have a day job. I currently don't because thanks to radio kicking me to the curb enough. I've had enough of day jobs for a while. But I can spend the day going out, running errands, doing the rest of my life and saying, okay, we're home for a while. Great. I'll be upstairs. I got work to do. So 2 or 3 hours auditioning on some days. Some days, if there are no auditions, then there's no work happening. But that's basically working for free. It's a job interview of a sort. You're recording little samples, sending it off. Nobody's paying you until they pick you for the job, and then lots of money will come your way. But that's just the nature of the business.
Okay. Your very first job that you booked.
Let's see, the very first job, well, the first unpaid job, which we won't even call a job, when I was working at the high school, at the college station, part of the high school radio program, there was a comedy show, and they were doing a comedy bit about a girl who lived in a parallel universe version of Plainview, New York. And they needed a narrator, and the qualification was somebody who could say Plainview backwards. I said, "Oh, you mean Yevnyelp? Yeah, I can say that. Great, you're hired. No money, but cool. I was on the radio. Look at me." The first thing I actually got money for when I was working at radio stations, obviously I was being paid to be on the radio. But the cool thing about radio is there's a thing called a talent fee. If you record a commercial and it leaves the radio station and airs on other radio stations, there's a little scratch. Because back in the 80s, there wasn't a lot of scratch, but I got a little scratch. Cool. Got addicted to that really fast. And I would go audition for other advertising agencies and other stuff. And I made a decent side income doing commercials up in Syracuse and later Rochester, New York. And then the first thing that anyone would think of as dubbing animation stuff was it's on VHS now, and it's long out of print. So if you really wanted to, it's actually on YouTube if you want to watch it, called Little Tug's Big Adventure. Live action footage of boats in New York Harbor. I voiced almost all of the male boats. I was going to voice the female boats as well, but the director decided that wasn't very good. So I've not watched it recently, but I'm at least 90% of the male boats. Okay. And it's a cute little story, and it's apparently still shown in schools, I guess.
Okay. What makes you get out of bed in the morning?
Well, the desire to work. There are days when there's nothing happening and I'll sleep in, but sometimes I have to get up and go to the gym periodically. So there's that. But I love getting to do what I do. So if there is the chance of auditions happening, I want to get up here and I want to record and I want to do the best damn audition, whether they like it or not. I'll audition, and if somebody likes it and they book me, cool, I got a job. So it's the freelance lifestyle. It's the hustle. It's okay. There's no money coming in unless I run upstairs and submit auditions. And even then there might not be money coming in, but there definitely won't be money coming in if I'm not auditioning. So it's that desire to satisfy my family's needs for food, clothing, and shelter.
Oh, that's a great answer. That's the best answer so far.
Thank you.
Okay. Your dream job, your dream gig, the gig that would make you go, this is it. I have landed in paradise.
Something big and theatrical. I have done dubs of things that have mostly anime stuff that has hit theaters, but in very limited release. But still, I was able to go to premieres and sit in the theater and say, "Cool, that's my voice on the big screen." But something in wide release from one of the animation companies you must know. If any of them would take an interest and put me in a thing where I could say, "Yeah, big red carpet and premiere, and hey, look, there's my name, the credits, and a major motion picture." Yes, thank you very much. And also, as a full service actor, I came from the stage. My body still works. I might not be able to remember lines as well as I used to, but I can still work on camera too. So if somebody wants me to be on camera, yes, thank you very much.
You know, that's interesting. I just want to go back to that because I want everyone to remember what you first said about acting, voice acting just being a specialty and not being the whole world. How'd you phrase that again? Could you just say that one more time?
Voice is a specialization, not a restriction.
God, that's good. That is an amazing quote because I really think that that's some of the best advice I've ever heard too. And that's something I would like to share with a lot of people out there because it makes sense because so many people get so, I'm going to be a voice actor, I'm going to be a voice actor, but they don't think about just being an actor, first. And,
one of the things that gets under our skin, and I say this collectively because other actors have specified, is when people say, "Well, you're not a real actor." Excuse me?
What?
And I point out, I used to do stuff on stage and a couple of on-camera things in forgettable cable commercials. When I left the stage and went into a vocal booth, did I go from being an actor to a voice actor? No, I'm an actor using my voice. You can't see me acting, but I'm still acting, and I'm still acting just as animatedly, but you just can't see me doing it. So I'm still just as much an actor, but all you hear is my voice. So I guess we call it a voice actor. But the term voice actor is really used more by fans. If somebody is creating a cartoon or dubbing a cartoon, they don't necessarily say, well, let's find some voice actors. Let's find some actors. You want an actor. Now, being a specialist, you get to learn a few techniques where you can use your voice more effectively than
Yeah.
someone who's only done work on stage, perhaps. Not bad mouthing any of my on camera and on stage colleagues, but because I had my radio experience, I've been in front of microphones before and I know how to work with them. But we are all actors, and you can get any decent actor in front of a microphone and I can make a voice actor out of them, whatever that means. My
Mhm.
brother-in-law, who was a Broadway actor, um, and he was on the original cast of Phantom of the Opera, among other things. For my radio work, I needed, we were writing phone scams, fake phony phone calls, because you can't do them for real for legal reasons. So I needed an actor. I asked my brother-in-law, I said, "You want to do me a favor?" Sure. He was not a voice actor per se. He had done some in his career, but it wasn't his specialty. But he did a damn fine job uh, using his family heritage Irish accent
Mhm.
to be the victim of a phone scam. So, yeah, it's a specialization, not a restriction. I can step out on a stage and do stuff on stage. My body still works. My brain still works. I can remember lines. I'll be on stage if you need me.
Fantastic. That's
Thank
amazing,
you.
amazing advice. Well, I've got some time here for guys to ask some questions.
Please
Any questions here from Mike? We'll just have questions ongoing, so just knock them out whenever you're ready for them.
don't be shy.
Don't be shy. A couple of questions. All right, Mike. So, in the future, will you continue to work from home, or will you actively try to get back in the studios again?
It's really based on what the market will bear. Right now, auditions are still coming in by email, and I look through them and saying, "Is this from home? Is this in town? Still from home? Cool. The setup is still here. The setup is still functional." But today's video game thing, this was my third or fourth session, I think, fourth session overall.
Mhm.
They've all been in the city. They've all, in the height of the pandemic, it was masks and gloves and sanitizers. Today it was still masks, still gloves. No, still masks, still sanitizer, no gloves. Still a little weird because we hop on the bus and the bus requires masks in the bus and in the bus terminal. And then when they got to the studio, you have to leave your mask on until you are safely in the booth. But at the engineer said, you can take your mask off while you're putting, I was wearing headphones, or excuse me, microphones on a headband around my head, turning it into a human mic stand, by the way. But
Mhm.
that's how they've been doing it. So he had me put that on myself, and he was going to come help. And he said, you can take your mask off now. I said, okay, great. But
Mhm.
then he had to leave the room, realized one of the mics wasn't working. He said, could you put your mask on? I have to come back in now. All righty. Weird, not unbearable. The other thing that I'm going to be doing next week, if it's at the same place, it was a not full motion capture, but it was a video harness where they would just get a close up of my face when I was working. So that involved, they have two separate harnesses, never worn back to back. There's always time for them to air out and get sterilized. But I would come in and all masked and gloved and say, okay, go wash your hands. Now put this on. Go in the room, leave your mask on until we leave. Okay. Not none of that happened before. It's pretty much, hey, you just walking off the street, get in the booth, you're fine. But that's how the world has changed. And it's the first couple were weird. I remember the first session at the height of the pandemic when I was going to be going in town. I got a call. I think it was a Saturday,
Mhm.
and said, "Oh, we're doing a thing, but we need an answer immediately. Will you come in? We have to do this on Monday." But there's a pandemic and the people with the virus. So I called my doctor for the doctor on call, and I said, "This is urgent. I guess I might have a job, but I don't know if it's safe to go in. What do I do?" My doctor called me and said, "You're fine. You're young. You're healthy. Take precautions. Have a good time," which I did. It was wonderful. Got the gig. It was fantastic. Um, if the one disadvantage to working from home, especially on auditions, is self-directing. I can direct myself, but I found that if there's a casting director who can listen and give feedback and say, okay, now try it this way, try doing this, it's much more helpful because they have a better idea of what the client wants, and they have a better idea of getting me to give them what the client wants. But for the auditions from home, here's a script, direct yourself, send it back. Okay. If they would be willing to do an appointment-based remote direction thing, okay, just like an audition where you come in from 2 to 2:15, you'll stay home from 2 to 2:15 and we'll call you and direct you live. Great. And a couple of people have done that, and that had been fantastic. I think I booked one of those of the several, but the odds are always against me. So if that could work and continue like that, that'd be great. They'd save on renting casting studios, which, renting real estate is expensive in Manhattan. If they want to do that, great. Whether they're going to do that, not that they're asking my opinion, but that would be helpful. But otherwise, I'll work from home. I'll work in the city. I'm more comfortable going into town now. But as of now, the demand is not yet there.
Yeah, and I think that I don't know. Do you see, and this is another good question for an experienced voice actor, do you see things getting back? I mean, things are kind of in California here, and it's getting back, kind of getting back, pretty much getting back to normal in a lot of ways. But I see a lot of resistance because we're in Strawberry Hill Studio, and people want to come in, but they're going like, I can do this at home, and I
Mhm.
can send it to you. And to be honest with you, it's actually improved our business model by doing this because we save a lot of time
Mhm.
and we save a lot of energy, and things have actually improved for us. So do you see this as a trend, or do you see this as just a new business model?
A couple of places when restrictions started to ease, one studio gave me a choice. We gave everyone a choice. We're recording, it's a dub, and it can be either at home or in studio.
Right.
I think once I took them up on it and went in just to see what it was like, because I had already been in town for other stuff and I wanted to see people. But then the last couple of times they gave me the choice, is it home works for me? Does it work for you? Great. Then I'll save that 2-hour commuting buffer and just stroll upstairs, get some Starbucks delivered because Uber Eats is a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, food arrives at the door, chomp chomp upstairs. Here I am at work.
It's just, I think that's great. Honestly, I think that's just a great way of doing things. And
If you
studios,
yeah,
studios can just actually take on more work. It's just actually win-win for a
if
lot
you
of
can get away with it, yeah. But then you run into problems. Here in my attic studio, top of the house, it gets hot. I've got an air conditioner. One day I had a session on a Wednesday. My air conditioner decided to make smoky smells and stop working on a Sunday night. That's a problem because if I'm working in the heat of the summer, I've got to at least cool the place down so I can turn the air conditioner off and survive for a couple of hours. But in this case, I had to run to the appliance store on Monday, have them come and install. And when was the only time they could install? Wednesday. Well, here's the problem. I've got a thing Wednesday at 2, and you're going to be coming right before 2. It's cutting a little close. They showed up, fortunately, bright and early, got everything done in the nick of time, had a brand new air conditioner working lovely, fired it up right before my session, got the session from home. But I also called one of my local studio friends here in the suburbs and said, Jude, remember me? We recorded some stuff before. I might have an emergency and my studio might be getting an air conditioner installed right when I need to record. Can I come to your place, bring all my travel gear and just use your space with my equipment and record there while my wife stays home and watches the air conditioner be installed? Cool, no problem. We can do that. Had him on call, didn't need him. It was great.
Was that his actual voice that you just did?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this sort of soft-spoken sort of a guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Not
studio.
going to name names in case he's watching.
Yeah, that's a studio dude's voice. Yeah, cool, bro. Yeah, man.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he, bless his heart, he would have happily done a favor. I'd have thrown some scratch at him because don't be a jerk. But that's those kind of emergencies. You got to have a plan B. So
Yeah.
he's my plan B.
Yeah.
And I've used him once before. One of the hurricanes. Yes, hurricane. We were without power for a week, which was tolerable. But there was one of my remote clients pre-pandemic remote clients that would rely on me for stuff, and they needed something, and I don't have any power. Hello, are you there? Do you have power? Can I come over? He was on the other side of town. He had power. We did our thing. It worked out great.
Oh, by the way, what are you drinking? Because we always kind of show our drinks off because they didn't have them in
Sure.
the garage. And I'm okay. What do you got there?
I'm a Starbucks guy. It's
Oh,
my venti iced Americano for Mike.
okay. So you're doing drugs and I'm doing
Mhm.
alcohol. There we go.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm doing a Great Fist. I'm doing like local sort of wines here because I'm close to wine country. So every week I
Excellent.
can pull up a new wine, and just show everybody what I'm drinking, and they all get jealous and leave me nasty comments later on. So
Cool.
this was
I'm
just
taking a tremendous risk because I've got to be up in the morning, and I'm filling my body with caffeine, and it's almost
yeah.
midnight. Fantastic.
I can't
This will
do
be me at 4 in the morning. No. Fine.
yeah, I can't do caffeine at night. It's just a morning caffeine thing. I'm gonna be in bed.
Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. This is probably one of the nights I can't, but I'm willing to take the risk. As of now, after the morning gym, I've got nothing else, so I can come home and nap.
That is awesome. And then you're just auditioning and auditioning, which is fantastic too.
If
And so,
there are auditions to come.
yeah. And so I got a few more questions for you because I know people want to know this. What what should people be doing for a demo? A lot of people keep asking about demo reels and creating demos, and let's put it this way, how do you know, how does somebody know when they should start making a demo, or when the lessons not should end because should always be learning,
Mhm.
but when have you reached that tipping point where you go like, you know what, I need a demo, and now I need to take Mike's advice
Mhm.
and get an agent, and start maybe multiple agents. But what's telling people when's the moment? How do you know?
I was fortunate in that the first few gigs I didn't need a demo. They knew me from the radio. They had me come in and audition.
Yeah.
When radio kicked me to the curb the first time, and I was suspended, um, I fortunately had a back catalog of character voices that I could draw upon, and I was on good enough terms with the syndication outfit to go in and produce my demo, even though I was currently on layoff. But I made my demo and was able to send it around, and the Pokemon people liked me, and 4 kids liked me. After that, the one animation demo wasn't really enough, and there was not enough formal training. So I got voiceover coaching for a big investment, and I eventually served as the coach's office assistant for a couple of months and learned a bit more about his business practices, which made me not want to be working with him. That's a story for another time. But as part of his training, his coaching, he would coach you to the point where you were ready to produce demos. And he produced 4 for me: commercials, animation, promo, narration. And it's unfortunately a fine and somewhat shady line that commercial demo producers can be slightly sketchy and shady and dishonest. And, well, we'll upsell you with this, this, and this. You could buy this fancy demo. Fine. So do your due diligence. Find an honest voiceover coach who will train you. What you don't want to be is the guy who doesn't have any potential and who they'll just take your money anyway. Say, oh, you sound great. You should do many demos now. A reputable coach,
Wait,
even the
okay,
guy who
wait, is
was
that Caillou's dad talking to us just now?
not necessarily. I don't know that Caillou's dad has a voiceover of his own, but a reputable coach, at least the semi-reputable coach that I worked with, will do an assessment. He'll charge a small fee to have you read some sample stuff for half an hour. Say, yeah, I can work with you, or no, I can't work with you. This isn't a good fit. And then he'll start saying, well, here's this lesson, this lesson, this lesson. How much you got? Don't get in over your head. Be a smart consumer, but expect to pay. You're paying for expertise, and training in itself is a good thing. And then at the end of your training, here's your demo package. We'll make some demos for you. We'll show you how to send it out. So you're either taking the coach's word, and if the coach is reputable, he or she will honestly tell you, yes, you're ready to do demos. Or if the coach is not reputable, you sound great. I'll take more money to make your demo now. So it's a bit of a risk, but be as educated as possible and find someone you can trust. And if someone tells you honestly, this isn't for you, then take their word for it.
Okay, fantastic advice. Okay, another question as well is there are many voiceover teachers out there that don't have the industry experience. So when you're selecting a teacher and you're selecting an educator, someone to be your mentor, people keep asking me this: should I be looking at people who teach and teach professionally, quote unquote professionally, and do a lot of teaching, or do I I get somebody who's in the industry who's working to teach me? Because my personal opinion is somebody who's in the industry working tends to be a better teacher than
Mhm.
as opposed to somebody who is just teaching all the time. I don't know. I'd love you to get your feedback on something like that.
Sure. Some of the sketchier people that come to mind, whose names I won't mention, are primarily teachers. And yeah, I think you're better off. I know some people who are working actors who also pick up some extra scratch on the side by teaching.
Yeah,
You will benefit, I think, more from their experience because they're up on the current trends because they are working in the current trends currently.
yeah,
Um, the the shadier, hustlier, scratchier, just teachers, I would reconsider. Fortunately, with the internet, you can do some research. Now you're going to get distracted by the big flashy ads.
yeah,
Make millions in voiceovers. That
yeah.
you want to do. Join some. There's some Facebook groups for those people just starting out. There are also Facebook groups for more experienced people who hate all the people that are just starting out. I never done this before. Can you do? So stick with the startup groups until you reach a point where you have some experience under your belt. We thank you for that. But ask around and you'll get people. Oh, this guy's good. This lady, a little sketchy. And do some research, and you'll find somebody who will work with you and not take all of your money.
Right. And so do you agree with that opinion that it should be somebody in the industry teaching you, or do you,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, okay.
there are a couple of good places that are staffed by working professionals. There
Mhm.
then half and half. Some are not working professionals, but one of the ones I can think of, one of my old cartoon friends, who has plenty of cartoon experience, and he is the animation teacher at this establishment. He's good. I'd go with him.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Well, we don't want to take too much of your time tonight. It's been like very educational and very
Thank you.
interesting. Is there anything you'd like to say to people out there, and anything you'd like to close off tonight with?
Sure. If you want to follow me, I'm on social media at It's a Mike on Twitter. It'samike.com is my website. I have these pesky rules of fan engagement that some people love, some people hate. But basically, if you find me, don't direct message me because it's much safer to be speaking publicly. So talk to me all you want on Twitter publicly or Facebook publicly, and we'll have a much better relationship. Otherwise, private messages get messy and accusatory. Well, Mike said this in a private message. Well, your word against mine. If it's public, we can all see what I'm saying, and it's fine. And you'll notice that sometimes I'm a little bristly and blunt on social media because I've been doing this for a while, and I know that there's a little behind the scenes backstage stuff. It's not all everyone loves the show but forgets the business. So I will remind you of how the business works in addition to the stuff going on stage in front of the in, behind the curtain on the stage, but also when the curtain closes, what's going on backstage and off stage as well. I'll give it to you straight.
Okay. Fantastic. Mike, thank you so much for being on
Sure.
today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all your wisdom. And for everybody out there, please follow Mike and don't direct message him. Speak to him publicly. Mike,
Please.
thanks
I'm
again.
much more accessible that way. Raj, whoa, I almost spilled my drink. Thank you for keeping me awake all night.
All right. Well,
I'll think of
big
you at
cheers.
4 a.m.
Big cheers. You'll be up all night. I'm going to be losing in about an hour. All right.
Perfect.
Take care, buddy. Have a great night. Okay.
Thank you
Take
so much, Raj. You too. Thanks
Bye.
everyone for watching.
Okay. Bye bye.